My thought is, because I know a lot of people are saying, and I probably am among them today, I just kind of alluded to the fact that I didn't think Kamala Harris is a great candidate. I don't think she's particularly charismatic. I think she sometimes can be flustered in situations that she shouldn't be. But I also want to say she really did answer the call. She was dropped into this race as Biden stepped back. He probably should never have been in the race, Joe Biden, right? That would have been the real way to take a shot at this. But Kamala Harris had a very tough job. She had to establish herself to an electorate that largely really didn't know who she was or what she was about. And she had to press the case against Donald Trump at the same time. And the other thing she had to do, and this is the really tough thing she had to do, she had to somehow be loyal to the administration that she's serving, while also stepping away from a president who is unpopular. So these are really difficult things that she did pretty well. I guess that's what I'm getting around to. So when I look at how Kamala Harris prosecuted this race, I can't really look at anything in her that I thought was so awful. It's the decision to emphasize certain things and de-emphasize certain things in this race. I believe you could have been more aggressive about it, and I'll give you an example. I feel as though there was a lot of attack from the Trump people on the border, on trans issues. I mean, they jammed economy, border, and then cultural wedge issues like trans issues, and they jammed them hard. And I might have really taken an aggressive defensive posture toward that. For example, I would have responded on the, are you better 4 years ago than you are now? Are you, were you better off? I would have taken that on. I mean, I'll remind you what Donald Trump's programs and Donald Trump's administration was all about 4 years ago. And I would have talked about the chaos, the denial associated with COVID, how many people lost their lives, how there was this Hunger Games of trying to find PPE stuff and the vaccine. I would also have pulled apart his economy and his economic, and when I say pulled it apart, I mean, these things have to be messaged very effectively. And that's why you get back to a candidate, because a candidate can be charismatic enough, well-spoken enough to message aggressively in little bursts. Now, Donald Trump is a train wreck when he gets out there on the stump. But one thing he is charismatic and absolutely unapologetic about bringing the fight. So he messages, even though it's not true. He messages. And I feel as though that's something the Democrats have always lagged on. And in this case, they might have taken a more aggressive, and this is kind of a weird way to put it, but aggressive defensive posture to knocking down a lot of the stuff that Trump served up. You don't want to be on defense. I get it. You don't want them setting the agenda. But Americans care about the economy and immigration, all right? So you don't need necessarily to be responding to Trump to be handling those issues. They are front and center issues. But I felt as though in the end, I mean, it's clear in the very end here that the case wasn't made effectively. And the last thing I would say is that the pollsters were not wrong about how close the race was. I know I mentioned Ann Seltzer. I mean, I think she was wrong about Iowa. I don't know, but the race was very close, and I mean, within the margin of error. And while you look at the map and you see it all red, I mean, it wasn't a map that was decided by an overwhelming number, which is why on the margins, some of these, and we're going to discuss them and show you, some of these demographics that broke for Trump instead of Harris were critical, even though they were small percentages. Women who are suffering so excruciatingly under this Supreme Court, I was very surprised that the women didn't come out in bigger numbers. I mean, again, Maybe not enough to sway the election, but women did not come out. In fact, the information on women, we talked about this last night. We had a special election show. The exit polling in swing states, white women were the only women who favored Trump over Harris, in spite of Democrats framing Trump as an existential crisis for women's health and well-being. 53% of white women chose to align themselves with Trump anyway. That's just one example. The Latino vote, it's fascinating to see the Latino vote break so solidly for Trump, despite everything he said. It's a scary time that I'll get into in greater detail later about the incoming administration. Who will populate his administration? Elon Musk, RFK Jr., Peter Thiel. These are the guys who are going to have their way with Donald Trump, right? The tech bros are now going to be in the White House, David Sachs, et cetera. Mostly, I shouldn't say mostly, some of them just want the tax cuts, which Trump will definitely push through. But others have bigger plans. And in the case of Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, et cetera, you've given guys who really have no ethical moorings, you've given them control of the entire place. And so this concerns me immensely. We'll talk more about it, as I say, later in this show and obviously in the days ahead. I'll get to, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah,
I was thinking about what Kamala Harris could have done differently. And I don't know if she could have done much. The only mistake I think she made through the campaign was on immigration. And when she was repeatedly and pointedly asked, would you have done anything differently? To say, you know what, we made some, and this is against the Trump rule book to ever admit that you've done anything wrong, is to say we've learned a lot and we have better plans in place now. Here's where I think we went wrong. Here's how I think we can fix it. Maybe that would have resonated with voters a little bit more. But this woman worked hard and she only had 3 months to do it. And the fact that half the country is sitting here with mouths agape and shocked at what happened today says to me she couldn't have really done much more than she did.
Well, I agree that she really did, as I said before, do very well in a very tough situation. I think the mouths agape thing, I would say we're out of touch a bit with America, and we have to be able to admit that. I mean, we're in our own information silo. You know, last night, I want to get to Anthony Davis in a second. He's just terrific, and I won't, I'll just make this point and then I'll move on. We'll obviously integrate thoughts along the way. But when Trump was making his acceptance speech last night, or whatever that was, you know, which was essentially gracious speech, you know, but then he goes off script and he brings on Dana White from the UFC and he thanks Joe Rogan. And then he thanked Theo Vaughn, or somebody else on stage thanked Theo Vaughn and some of these podcasters who had been part of the machine that got the messaging out. And I feel as though when we say our mouths are agape the next day, I think we don't understand the power of that machine on some level. And I, for that reason, say, you know, we need our own reckoning as we need to, you know, go over the ashes of this election. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.